see it. Can you see it, Ferg? Okay, so Ferg has just disappeared behind the bushes. But somewhere out in that direction there was a kudu. Now a kudu is far too large for her to catch. We did actually probably have a look at that same family of kudu just briefly as we made our way in. However, a baby kudu would certainly be fair game for her. And I guess, like Tristan said a little bit earlier, she's definitely cashing in on all the youngsters. There's a youngster in amongst them. It's a young male. And she's up immediately. She stood up immediately, and that young male's just disappeared off into the bushes. It's not a newborn, it's actually probably around 7 or 8 months old. And the cubs also just popped out somewhere nearby. I'm not too sure where. We just heard the kind of bushes rustling, and it's also close by. So it's all happening here. Tandi sitting up, kudu are walking past, the cub just exploded out of a bush just to our left here. So I'm sure now that it is cooling down a little bit, we can expect to hopefully see a lot more action. And don't forget that there were those impala not too far away. She can be quite fussy, and so will a lot of leopards when it comes down to taking down large prey. I saw her walk straight past an adult male Inyala not too long ago. She didn't even kind of consider taking it down, even though she probably could. It would be an almighty wrestle, but she rather didn't want to take any risks. No, I wonder now that she's sitting up if we can't get some better views of her. But I think for now it's probably best just to stay put. The cub may come out and want to start playing with her. So I think patience might be our best bet for now rather than moving about. It is also quite a tricky area to move around. There's a lot of thick vegetation and a little riverbed, the same riverbed that she's lying in, that would be quite tricky to negotiate. So let's just stay put for now. I also don't want to interfere with chasing any of the possible prey away. So by staying put, we're definitely going to have as little impact as possible on any hunting that she may be lucky enough to do, if in fact the meals keep coming towards her, which will actually happen quite often. It would be a very interesting statistic to be able to know how often prey walk into predators as opposed to predators actually seeking out the prey. But again, a very difficult statistic to work out accurately, because these animals are very tricky to spend every waking minute with. Even if we had the manpower to stay out 24 hours a day, it's not necessarily possible to actually stay with them, especially in the thick vegetation of the Sabi sands. I guess it would be more plausible in the Mara, where it's more open and less tricky when it comes to losing prey. Very good. We may now, I think she's just laid down somewhere else. So we were going to send you off to Tristan, but it sounds like he's just lost his picture. And there's a few areas on Djuma, the low-lying areas. There's one road, Inyala Road North. That road is also certain areas around the Mulwats, and it actually also depends on the individual vehicle you're driving. Each vehicle is configured slightly differently. So it's quite interesting, the technical side of what goes on here. I guess a lot of us, including myself, don't we take for granted what wizardry the tech guys in our team do to make these moments possible and make these pictures somehow get from here to you smoothly. It is a small miracle. So yeah, but there are a few areas where it can be tricky. Plains Rift, you mentioned how the camouflage is really doing a good job here, helping her dissolve into the undergrowth. And yeah, the leopard's coat definitely does a wonderful, wonderful job in helping them disappear and melt off into the thickets as they move about. Now, let me creep up a little bit here, get a little bit of a higher spot. Yeah, where she's laid down there, we're not going to get a view if I go around onto the other side, so we kind of have a... We're just going to stay put, get comfortable, and wait and see and when this cub comes out. And it sounds like Tristan's picture's back, so why don't you go and see how his quest for the female leopard is coming along.
Well, I'm busy trying to get quickly towards the dam cam, because I believe some of you have let us know that there are impalas and baboons shouting at the dam cam, and so maybe something is lurking there. So I'm heading quickly in that direction, just trying to hope that we can find some sign of a lurking predator. Now this morning there was hyenas that had stolen, and, well, I say stolen, they could have killed it themselves quite easily actually, so that's very naughty. Let's not do that again. But they could have easily taken, well, had this nyala carcass, and that could have come from a predator, so you never know. And there was apparently baboons shouting the odds at Djuma all day today, so maybe there is a little lurky leopard, is what I'm going to call it, lurky leopard, that's a fairly good name, somewhere in that area. So we're heading in that direction to try and see if we can find this said leopard that might be around. I wonder if it's, I have no idea actually who it could be, but it'll be interesting. Maybe even Tingana. Wouldn't that be a nice surprise to have a little last minute leopard turn up in this section? So we're going to head in that direction, and hopefully he's just prancing about right out in the open, or she, whoever it may be. That will certainly make life quite easy. I somehow think though it's not going to be that easy, and certainly we're going to have a situation where it's going to be a little tougher to find them. It's not an easy area around the dam. The dam itself is obviously very open, but once you get into the thickets on the northern side, or even on the southern side of the what's going on. So we'll try our luck and see how we go and see what we can get. At least it's starting to cool down a little bit now, which is quite nice. So Mr. Q-Tip, you're wondering about Tingana and if there's been any news on him. So the last sighting of Tingana was on Chitwa 2 days ago, so not yesterday, the day before. And in the afternoon he crossed north into Torchwood, moving around there. So unfortunately it's been very quiet though from a guest point of view in both Djuma and the surrounding landowners, and well, Cheetah Plains is out for renovation. So in fact there's actually been not one vehicle on Torchwood the last 3 days, which means that we don't know really where Tingana is. So it's not surprising that we don't have an update, but he went that direction, and so it should take him from Torchwood. That should theoretically bring him back towards Djuma, and hopefully back onto this area where he can kind of stamp his authority as the dominant. Not far away, but I'd like to kind of keep him on the western side of Zoe's. Let's say he can have from Zoe's to Triple M, that's what Hukumuri can have, and then Tingana can keep all the sort of central parts of Djuma, Mulawati, and the eastern sections. That's what I think anyway. I think that would be a fair compromise. Right, now I'm going to try and just check around. We're at Galago shortcut now, so I'm going to check Galago Pan, check north of the camp, and then round to the dam. And while I do that and see if I can find any sign of a lurking leopard, let's send you back across to Scott, who hasn't had nearly as much of a struggle and has found his own lurking leopard and a better view of it.
Yes, thank you, Tristan. It's been a very pleasant and easy afternoon for myself, and we have managed to get ourselves into a decent spot now where we can at least see Tandi just relaxing. And it'll be interesting to see what her plans are for this evening. She could well just relax right here until the end of the safari. There's only, I guess, 45 minutes left. I'm hoping, I really am hoping that this little cub is going to come out and want to play with Mom. But it's still quite warm. So you may find that both of them are just happy to relax until the cool of the evening, before they start getting up and active. Only time will tell. And the fact that they are both well fed, I'm not actually sure how much of this baby waterbuck kill the cub has fed on, but I'm guessing it would have nibbled on some of that meat. It has started to eat meat, but either way, mom will be producing lots of milk because her belly is filled with meat, and times are good for them, so their bellies are full, and that'll also cause them to be quite relaxed for the time being. The ugly mermaid. You would like to know how are the... And they're going to have very, very little problems with dry weather. For two reasons. They don't eat vegetation, therefore the dry weather doesn't impact their food greatly. Although if it's very dry, their food could become malnourished. But if anything, it becomes easier for the predators when it's dry because their prey becomes weak. So it becomes easier. Oh, nice big yawn. It becomes easy for them to catch their prey. On the other hand, I guess there's not as much cover when it's very dry, so that may bode in the prey's benefit to a degree. But more importantly, in the Sabi sands, where we are, there's a lot of artificial water points, man-made dams. So there's a lot more water. There's a lot of water. There's more than enough water for the cats to drink, and therefore the drought conditions, aren't really creating any hardship for any of the big cats, not that I'm aware of. For you, on the other hand, being a mermaid, it would be very, very tricky to survive here at the moment. You would be mermaiding in very muddy wallows. It wouldn't be much fun. Okay, well, we are not going to move a muscle. We're going to stay put until the end of the safari. But we're going to send you back across to Tristan, and he's about to welcome on 3 schools. So you may find he slips into a slightly different mode of guiding, and the rest you will see for yourselves right now.
Well, indeed, and it is a very, very warm welcome to the 3 schools that are joining us this afternoon. So, to Friendship ISD, Westville Elementary. I think Westville Elementary was the right, Westlake. I'm very, very sorry, Westlake Elementary from California. And to Lanesville Elementary, it is a very, very warm welcome. I hope that you guys are going to have the best day with us, or best 45 minutes, should I say, and that you're going to learn lots and lots and lots about the African animals and have lots of questions for us, because we love questions and we want to answer as many of your questions as possible. Now, if you want to ask questions, you just need to tell your teacher what you want to know, and she will send it, or he will send it through to us, and we'll try and answer as many as we can this afternoon. Now, the plan is for this afternoon is that it's not just me out here. We're going to have my friend Scott, who's also out, and I think he's trying to find, or is with, a female leopard, which is very exciting. And well, we are responding to some alarm calls. So alarm calls are made by all kinds of different animals, and they can indicate different things. So they can sometimes mean that there is a leopard around, or it could be a lion, or it could be a bird of prey, a snake. So there are some animals that are alarm calling in this area, and so we're trying to see what is causing that. And then if we don't come right with any of those things, and we can't find what's making all the fuss, then we're going to try and see if we can find you some big elephants to show you this afternoon. It is a warm afternoon, and so the earlies should come for a drink, and we're not too far from some of the water holes. So that's the plan for this afternoon. Right, let's get going. So, Elizabeth, you want to know how I know a lot of facts about the animals? Well, Elizabeth, I don't do that at all. And learn about some of the animals and read some books and try and kind of study about them. And then I went into the field and into places like this, where every single day I get to learn facts about the animals, because I see them and I watch them and I get to see how they live and what they do. And that's the best way to learn, is to actually be out with the animals, because a lot of the animals, they don't read books, so they don't know what they're supposed to do. They just do what they have to do to survive and to thrive in these kind of areas and to be, alive and well and kicking. And so you'll find they do all kinds of different things. best way to learn is actually to be out here, and then from there you back up what you're seeing with reading about things and going and looking up. If you see something that you don't really know why an animal is doing that, you go and try and research that and go and look and try and find information why the animal is doing what you are seeing, and that's how we learn the best and how we kind of pick up what's going on. So it's a very good thing to do. Right, now I'm going to try and look for animals, but my friend Scott, well, he seems to be a magician this afternoon, and he's favorite cat and the most beautiful one we have on the property.
A beautiful, beautiful cat, but I'm trying to pretend I'm the cat and show you how well I can hide in the bush. But I bet you it's very easy to see me. My name's Scott, and it's wonderful to have the three schools joining us now. Bushes across to our left here. So, can you guys see anything yet? Can you? I'm teamed up with Ferg on camera, and as he starts to zoom in, it might become a little bit easier. But the cat that we are sitting with now is one of the best at coming to camouflage and hiding itself. Can you guys see it yet? I'm guessing you can. But you get a good idea of how well the leopards can blend in to their environment with all those black spots and their golden coats. And this is definitely, when it comes to sneaking up and catching food, leopard are one of the best, and they have to be very, very close to their prey before they run after it. The prey is very quick, so as fast as the leopard is, it has to be about 5 meters away from the prey before it attacks. And 5 meters is just the length of about 2.5 regular doors. So if you look at the door into your classroom, imagine it lying flat on the ground, and you put 2 of them together and another half of one. That's how close the leopard has to be before it pounces. Ray, you'd like to know if I don't get scared of the leopards out here, because can't they do anything to us? And even though they could if they wanted to, hopefully you'll see this leopard's tiny little cub a little bit later on, and that will give you a good idea of how from a very young age the animals get used to them. All we ever do is just watch them. So it's almost like we really become invisible in their lives, because it doesn't harm you. Even as humans, you kind of will very soon not really take that thing or that person to... Oh, nice big yawn. That's a good sign. Hopefully she's waking up. Oh no ways, Tristan's found something really interesting. Not with the leopard, but with another interesting predator.
Well, it's difficult to see now, but you can see it moving through the grass there. It's tough to see, but it's a wasp that has caught itself a meal. So it's got itself some sort of a larvae or a pupa, maybe something like a a butterfly that's gone into a chrysalis. It's very difficult to see. It's called a thread-waisted wasp that's ran off into the grass, unfortunately, which means that we're not going to see it anymore. But how cool is that? You'd see there's not just about the big animals out here. Sometimes there's amazing stuff to see, and you'd think that a little wasp wouldn't be able to kill such a big creature. That creature is the same size as the wasp, and it shows you how strong that wasp is to be able to pick that larvae or pupa or whatever it is up and then carry it off. Really, really cool. Time that I've seen one of those thread-waisted wasps carrying such a big animal that it's killed. Very, very cool. So you're very lucky to see that, and hopefully that wasp will have a bit scared of us because we're really big objects and we're a bit intimidating. So I'm sure that's why it tried to run away from us quickly. Mrs. Hoyt, you're wondering what decomposers are in our ecosystem. So, well, we've got a few that are around. Obviously, I've got a number of rotting material and then pass it through their digestive system and then get it onto the ground. And so we'll have things like millipedes, earthworms, various types of insects. So you'll find we have carrion beetles, which will feed off rotting meat to a degree, and they churn that up and take that nutrients back into the soil. We'll have carcass beetles, we'll have all kinds of different things. So the carcass beetles and carrion beetles are more meat side, and then earthworms and millipedes are more detritivores, which detritivore means that they are breaking down all of the vegetation and the dead grass and dead leaf litter and passing down. So it's on an insect level, we get a lot of those kind of things happening, and a lot of that kind of taking place within our system. Now I've spotted a whole bunch of different animals across from us. We've got lots and lots of antelopes that are here, so we're going to try and just quickly cross this big dam wall that is very empty at the moment because it is actually the wet season, but it's very, very dry. Now while I try and get across this dam wall and across to all of the animals on the other side, I'm going to send you back to Scott to see whether that leopard is stalking or if it's just sitting taking it easy.
Well, she's just sat up, as all of you will notice, and she's essentially kind of just waking up. She would have spent the whole day snoozing. It's been a very hot day, and leopards prefer to move when it's cool after dark. And like I said a little bit earlier, actually I'm not sure if I've told the schools, she does have a kill nearby. She caught an antelope called a waterbuck. Some of that kill remains in that kill that she may well call her cub out of its little hiding place, and if we're very lucky we'll see this cub come running through to mom, may drink a little bit of her milk, and she loves playing with mom's tail. So sadly though, I think she's heading away from where we last saw the cub, but I'm told she may have brought a little piece of meat from the kill into this area, and maybe that's where she's heading. Michael, you would like to know what kind of behavior we look for when looking for leopards. Well, usually it's, not the leopard itself necessarily. The behavior of other animals helps lead us to leopards. For example, if we hear monkeys alarm calling or impala, a kind of antelope, even a lot of birds will alarm call when they see a leopard. So it's the behavior of other animals that helps us find leopards. It's a very tricky thing to do. We also spend a lot of time following their down to try and work out where they are. Now, I think she has pulled out a piece of meat, or maybe she's thinking about it. I just got the idea that she moved some bushes, and often when leopards do have a piece of meat down on the ground, they'll kind of cover it with leaves and branches, and you see how she's moving through some quite thick bush now. She could be pulling out that piece of meat. There it is. It's in her mouth. You guys. Josh, you would like to know how big is this leopard and how 11 years old. I'm guessing she weighs somewhere around 40 kilograms, maybe 50 at the most, which is about 100 pounds. So they're not very big cats. Not nearly as big as lions. A lioness, a female lion, will be twice or almost 3 times the size of a female leopard. So sadly she's decided to feed facing away from us, but she may move around again. Alex, you would like to know if black panthers are secretly leopards, and yes, that's exactly what a black panther is. But I think it depends on where you are in the world, Alex. In America and in South America, you get jaguars, and you can get black versions of a jaguar, just like here in Africa we can get black versions of a leopard. So we usually just call black leopards over here, but I'm guessing what happens in South America, where you get the jaguars, is that's where they are called. You sometimes also get a very pale form. You also get not an albino, but a whitish color, that sometimes happens, and it's not common, but you sometimes do get a kind of pale shade. What has Ferg spotted? Has Ferg got a surprise for us? He may well. Look at that! Well done, Ferg. It's the little cub. It's coming to join Mom. Hello, you. I haven't seen you for such a long time. And you... How awesome is this, guys? This is a tiny little leopard cub. We think it's about 3 months old. And we've been very, very lucky. We've seen it quite a lot over the last 3 months. And I'm guessing it's heard its mom crunching down on her dinner, and the cub probably wants to come and join her. How cool. Well done, Ferg. And Tristan, who will see some really interesting behavior, and the little cub was very, very playful, and it likes to attack Mom, especially her tail, which you can see she's holding up right now. It's the perfect toy for that cub to play with. Good. Well, we'll wait for this cub to pop out and we'll call you back as soon as it does, and we're going to send you across to Tristan, who's got some of this leopard's favorite food.
And we've got all kinds of different food items that the leopard likes to hunt here. In the foreground you can see that there are some impalas, which are a sort of medium-sized antelope and very similar to the deer that you have in the United States, and these are the ones that Tandi really likes to go after. So she'll hunt impalas quite a lot, and you can see these two males are practicing their skills. So what they're doing is they lock their horns together and then they push each other about a little bit, and it's all to try and practice, because soon in May it's going to be the rutting season. Now when I say rutting, it's basically these males will fight each other to try and get dominance, to be able to get lots and lots of females and have little babies. So that's very, very important for them, and they have to practice for that, and so they play around and mess around a little bit. So Lindsay, we are in a savanna biome. In fact, if we had to narrow that down, because there are different types of savanna, we're in a mixed wooded savanna, and so we have grass and lots of trees, and so it is part of the savanna biomes though, and is considered a savanna element. Now you'll notice that there's a different type of antelope in amongst the impalas. There's a very hairy, dark, chocolate brown antelope that's standing there. Now those are called nyala. So a nyala is an animal that you'll see a lot around thicker vegetation, and so we're very close to a dam that's got a drainage line. So a drainage line is an area where water flows into when it rains, and that fills up some of these dams, and it's generally got a lot of thick bush, and those nyala, they like to spend a lot of their time in those thickets, and that's how they kind of move around. Now what we have here is only males. There's no females with these males at the moment, and so you can see there's the two boys there. If they were females, they would look very different to the males, which is quite unusual. Now, Elizabeth, you want to know how I know if the animals are boys or girls? Well, in the case of the antelope, so these kind of animals that we see here, the males or the boys generally have horns, so they'll have these big kind of long straight horns that come off the top of their head, whereas the females don't. So you can see these nyalas are both boys because of the size of the horns. Also, they're a little bit bigger than what the girls are. They have a lot more muscle on them. And then if you look at the impalas in the background, you can see some of them have horns and some of them don't. So the boys are the ones with horns and the girls are the ones without. So they're the boys in the background, and then you can see a couple of the girls lifting their head now in front of the boys. So that's how you can tell. Now some of the antelope are a little bit different, and it's interesting because if you go to the back of these guys, well, hello little nyala, are you putting your head up to see what's going on? So they're just having a little look around just to make sure they know this time of the day is when the predators start coming out. So they're just checking to make sure that there's nothing going on. But behind them is another type of animal called a wildebeest. Now wildebeest are animals that we get here, and they often hang around in open grasslands. But with them, it's very difficult to tell male and female because both the male and female have horns. And the reason for that is probably because the females have to try and defend their offspring quite a lot of the time, and so horns help to chase away predators and to try and keep their babies nice and safe. But how you tell male and female in a wildebeest is if you look at their horns, the females have a very small big gap in the horn structure, and the males also a lot larger with a very dark face. Now, I'm going to try and just have a look quickly to see, oh, there's some of the baby wildebeest as well. I thought maybe we'd have a situation if there was some of the older ones, but there's some of the young wildebeest as well. So, Jacob, you're wondering how many animals live in this area. Jacob, very difficult to know for sure because animals, well, there's mammals, which are like the antelopes and the leopards, and then there's birds and insects, and all of those classify as animals. So, difficult to say, but I can tell you thousands and thousands and thousands of them live around here. But in terms of the mammals, well, you'll probably find that we have 400 or 500 maybe impalas. We'll have different amounts of wildebeest because they come in and out, they move a lot. In this area, we're in an area that's 8.5 million acres, and so everything can move around quite a bit. And then with our leopards, we normally have we can see as many as 18 in this area, but there's a little bit less than that at any one time. Normally so it's difficult to know exactly how many, but there's lots of animals that are coming in and out all of the time. But suffice to say that there is many, many, many interesting creatures all here at once. Now, talking about interesting creatures, Scott is still with the beautiful Tandi, and I'm hoping that that tiny little cub will come out because it's one of the cutest animals that we have here at the moment.
The cub tried to come up to Mom, and interestingly, Mom was hissing at her, not wanting to share dinner with her baby. So, very strange behavior, but sometimes a lot of things that happen in nature are difficult for us as humans to understand. So who knows why Mom isn't interested in sharing just yet. Maybe she wants to teach the cub some manners and tell it to wait a little bit before coming and trying to gobble up this food. And it is also important to remember that the cub doesn't only rely on meat, it's still drinking milk, and it'll continue to drink milk for about another 3 months. So maybe Mom's given it enough milk for the day. Time will tell. I'm not too sure where the little cub is at the moment, but it could poke its head out at any second, so you can help us keep an eye out for that. Stay with Mom. And it kind of varies. It depends on the mother and the cub. So it can be as early as 12 months of age. So at 1 year, the mother may kick out her cub, be it a boy or a girl, and then they need to start looking after themselves. Or it could be as late as 2 years. So it does depend, but on average, anywhere around 18 months, a year and a half, is the average length of time that cubs try and stay longer if they could, but the mother will usually chase them off because she will start getting ready to have her next cubs, and she can't look after 2 sets of cubs at once, and that's why she needs to chase off the older ones who need to start looking after themselves. And I guess it's not very different to us humans. We get to an age where eventually our parents will say, no more pocket money for you, you need to start looking after yourself. So this little cub's still got a long time before that happens, though. Oh, we're getting some great views of her nibbling on her dinner. And I know you've been chatting about decomposers with Tristan. Leopards are up against one of the world's most efficient decomposers, the fly. And a lot of flies will be buzzing around this kill, laying their eggs on it. And if a leopard's kill is big enough, there may even be a few maggots crawling around it by the end. Finishes it, because it can be 3 or 4 days if they catch something big like an impala. Ray, you would like to know, when are the animals most active? Well, because there's so many different animals here that it would be tricky to answer that your question just with all the animals in mind. But with leopards, definitely after dark, under cover of darkness, and also when it's cool. So, and I guess that's kind of applicable to most animals, especially in this area that we're in that can get very, very hot and humid in our summer. It can be very, very sweaty here and hot, but in our winter It can be quite cool. Let's have a quick look on the left here, Ferg. Looks like the cub's sneaking up somewhere. I'm not sure what it's trying to catch. It could be trying to catch little grasshoppers. It could be practicing its hunting on something small like a butterfly. Or what are you trying to pounce on? Or are you just chasing your own little tail? Well, there's another little glimpse of the cub. I'm hoping it's going to come out into a slightly better spot for you guys to see it. But for now, we'll take this. And on the topic of little cubs and practicing their hunting, they are born with the instinct, ready to hunt. They know how to hunt, just like a lot of your cats at home may catch birds or squirrels from time to time, and their mothers wouldn't have taught them how to hunt. It's just their instinct. Hello, you. How cute is that? Absolutely awesome. Adeline, you would like to know if leopards are purely carnivorous, and yes, all the big cats of Africa only eat meat, and I guess that's all the big cats around the world, to be honest, other than very occasionally, just like again your domestic cats and dogs may nibble on a few blades of grass to make them which helps them. It's kind of like medicine, you could say. Sometimes dogs and cats will eat grass to help them throw up, and if they're wanting to throw up, they may have some bones or some fur balls or something funny in their stomach. So that's why cats and dogs will do that from time to time. It's their own kind of medicine, but that's not food. It's just a way for them to clean out their tummy. Interestingly, though, they're not too fussy when it comes to meat. They'll eat tortoises, antelope, fish, birds, just about anything. Tania, you would like to know, how do I remember which animal is which? In terms of which leopard is which, or which animal is which? I guess it all just comes with spending time out here and practicing, but I don't always get it right, and sometimes I get it wrong and I get confused. Sometimes I mistake one leopard for another, or sometimes I call one bird by the wrong name. So I guess just like anything in life, if you spend enough time doing it, it becomes easier. So I guess that's the main thing to remember. We spend day in and day out here without too many distractions, and that helps us get familiar with all these different animals. What can that little cub sniff? I wonder if it's not sniffing where Mom was lying earlier. Their senses are so much better than ours, and that's always something to remember when dealing with wild animals, is that often their hearing, their sight, their smell, everything is just so much better than us. I can only smell tasty kind of takeaway foods or big restaurants that I walk past. But these guys have got far better senses than we do. Okay, well, we're going to race you off from this cute little cub to a beautiful sunset with Tristan.
We do have a very, very beautiful sunset. There's a big dead tree and the sun is slowly going down here in Africa, and it is such a pretty scene. The clouds are just softening the light a little bit, and so we get this really nice appearance of the sun kind of setting and coming down. Now, doesn't get much better than that. The reason we're sitting where we are, though, is because just now there was some of the impalas that we saw earlier. They were alarm calling. So when I say alarm calling, they make this snorting sound. So they go pff, pff, and that's when they see something that they don't like. And so it could be any kind of predator around here. And so we just came and we sat, and we've turned off now to listen very, very carefully. What there is here, Davy, is there's a bird in front of us. Can you see it over there? So we've got a very cool bird that is in front that's busy feeding at the moment. So, oh no, don't fly away now. But there goes our hornbill. So some of you might recognize it as looking very similar to Zazu from The Lion King. Now it's flown in there. Hopefully it will come back. But that hornbill is down at the moment because it was feeding off the elephant dung. So there's balls of elephant dung that are all around here, and that's got lots of insects in it that feed off the elephant dung, and so the birds then come and they feed off the insects and try and make sure they can get food out of it, which is very, very cool. And now I want to just try and reverse here because I saw another very pretty bird fly at the back here. Harrison, you want to know how many animals we see per day? Ooh, Harrison, I don't know, to be honest. We see a lot. It's difficult to measure exactly how many, because we have a situation where we see a lot of animals, kind of maybe the same animals, but then sometimes we don't see, the same, and we could see hundreds and hundreds of different impalas. Now my bird has flown away at the moment. It was somewhere there. But Dave, we can do the hornbill in the meantime. It's come back now. It's just in front here. Sorry, Dave. It's the bird that I was looking for flew away, unfortunately, which was a bright blue bird called a woodland kingfisher, but that's unfortunately gone away. We'll look out for it. Maybe it will come back. But there's our red-billed hornbill that's busy bouncing around, and it's looking for any insects that are on the ground. So it's trying to find insects that are moving in between all of the grass, and then it uses that long beak to try and grab them and swallow them up. And one of their favorite meals is a termite. So they absolutely love termites, and they'll try and find them that when the termites are moving. And you'll find termites do start to move around now at this time of the night. They like to kind of go between, well, try and work at night and find food, because it's much safer from predators, particularly birds who try and go and sleep at night. But there's a few termites that might come out a little bit earlier, and these guys can then feed off them. You see, look how it's using its big eye to try and find the food on the ground. So, Alison, you're wondering what characteristics of a savanna biome make it a good home for the animals. Well, the thing is about a savanna biome is generally you have a very, very good soil types, which means that you get great grasses and great trees that grow in savannas, which are very nutritious. Now, nutritious means that they have a lot of good qualities, well, good minerals, good vitamins, and so the animals like the taste of them and they can feed off them, and there's enough food then to support a lot of animals. So you'll have food that is able to support impalas, wildebeest, nyalas, elephants, buffalo, and then even obviously that amount of food that supports those herbivores, and the herbivores then support the carnivores. And so savannas are generally areas that have got very rich food sources that allows the animals to gain a lot of nutrients, and therefore it can have a lot of prey animals as well as a lot of predators. Now there's another one of our really beautiful birds. That bird there is called a Burchell's starling, and the interesting thing about this bird is that it is actually black. So it looks like it's got lots of blues and purples and greens, doesn't it? But that is actually a trick of our eyes. What happens with this bird is it's got these black feathers. It then has a prism-like structure on the feathers, and so prism is almost like a triangular shape. And what happens is as the light hits that, it then reflects back at us, and it has this iridescent coloration on it. So iridescence is those colors that we are seeing there, and so it's a bit of a trick. You can actually see around its face where the eye is, it lacks those well, I've forgotten the name now. Why have I forgotten the name? I'm talking too much, that's why I've forgotten the name. But it lacks those pigments, and it lacks those, sorry, it doesn't have those pigments, but it lacks the effect on that facial area, and that means that it's not bouncing the light back at us, and so only the feathers on the wings and the tail are giving us that effect. Very, very pretty though. Right, well, while we sit here and admire our beautiful starling and our sunset and hope that these impalas alarm call again or a predator shows up, let's send you back across to Scott and the beautiful Thandi and Cub.
Well, I'm sure you had a great time with Tristan and the sunset and the starling. Now, Tandi's moved position, and I think she could well have moved the food away from the cub. So, again, very, very surprising that she's not sharing her food with this youngster, and she's almost kind of taking it away from her. So, I don't understand why she doesn't want to share it. Let's have a quick look at... I know the cub's just kind of slunk off again. It was kind of poking its head out, but it's heading towards Mom now. So let's see what happens as the cub does get closer to Mom. Earlier on, when the cub first kind of woke up and caught up with Mom, Mom hissed and snarled at her, which was really interesting because that wasn't the kind of motherly love I was expecting to see. But again, often in nature, some things just don't make sense to us as humans. Kira, you would like to know, why do the animals not run away from us? And it's a good question, because if we were to wind back the clock a couple of 100 years and we were to drive into this area, every animal that saw us would run for their lives. And there's two reasons for that. The funny vehicles we're driving around takes a while for the animals to get used to, and also the fact that our great-great-great-great-great-grandparents used to hunt animals, and that was how we used to get our food. So animals are kind of instinctively quite scared of people, and for a good reason. But here, in this reserve, where people can only come in if they know about guiding and taking people through the bush, and there's no hunting here, so we only ever look at the animals. And this reserve's been open for nearly 60 years now, so for 60 years we've slowly been getting these animals used to us as humans, used to our vehicles. And if you think of this mother leopard, she gave birth to the cub, and as soon as the cub was very young, we started seeing it, and the cub would see its mother that was completely relaxed with us, and therefore the cub learned from its mom that we aren't dangerous. However, if a hyena came onto the scene, mom would have given that cub some warning calls and told the cub, be careful, there's some hyena coming, or there's some lion coming. But she doesn't do that with us. So even the cub now from a very young age is getting used to us, and we call that habituation. So they are slowly becoming habituated. They're not tame, they're still completely wild animals, and if we were not respectful, and if we got out the vehicle and walked towards her now, there's a good chance she would attack us. But we obviously don't want to do that, and all we want to do is... Oh, she's hissing and snarling. The cub has got a little bit closer. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to see it, but Ferg can try and show you. There, you can just see the little white tip of its tail. So the cub's probably about 3 or 4 meters away from mom, and mom's not being very hospitable. Alison, you would like to know what is the purpose of the spots on a leopard, and it's to help them blend in with their surroundings. It's for camouflage, so that they can sneak up on their prey. And if they were just one color, it would be very easy to see them. And it's an important thing to remember with camouflage. Camouflage is not necessarily about color, but it's more about shapes. And you can see how all those little spots and rosettes, you can see one rosette there, which is kind of a round black circle with a caramel colored inside. It all helps break the body up into lots of little pieces. So with all the leaves and branches and all the different colors on the leopard, it makes it very difficult for anything to spot them. Whereas if they were just one color, it would be definitely a lot easier to work out their shape. Now the cub's slowly trying to creep closer to mom, but mom still is not being very welcoming. I still haven't seen this little cub feed on meat yet, although Tristan did, and Tristan saw, I think, the first time hot dog, and that was about a week or two ago. So, surprised that mom's not sharing. She's definitely old enough to be eating meat. Irie, you would like to know how much food does a leopard eat per day? Well, it all depends on how lucky they are. Every day, but it's not easy for them to catch food, so some days they will not eat for 2 or 3 days, and that's the same with lion and cheetah. They don't need to eat every day. Their lives don't have the same routine as us. They don't have breakfast, lunch and supper, but they kind of eat whenever they can. But to kind of give you an idea of how much food a leopard needs to eat, once their belly is full, that would be about 20 pounds of meat, and that will last them for 3 to 5 days. But they do need to be able to eat themselves until their stomachs are very big, because they need to gobble up their food before the lions or hyena come and steal it. Now, are we going to see this little cub pounce on mom? It looks like she's thinking about it. She's creeping up on her. Of course, mom knows exactly where she is, but this little cub is doing its best to try and give mom a little bit of a fright. But now she's also chewing on some branches. And a typical young, curious cat just wanting to explore and have a good time. but Mom is not being very welcoming with her cubs' plans. Okay, well, exciting stuff with Tristan and those alarm calls. We were chatting about the behavior we look for when searching for leopards, and I'm hoping he's going to get lucky before the end of the safari.
Not even a single track to work with. So often when we're looking for animals like this, we're trying to find different kind of creatures. We try and see where they may have walked, and they leave then a footprint behind, and that then helps us to work out which way to drive to try and find them. And so far no track that I can see, but there must be something around, because the baboons have been alarm calling, the impalas have been alarm calling, the birds have been alarm calling, and when that happens, that's normally a sign of a cat. Cats are the ones that cause the biggest sort of disturbance out of everything, and so I wonder what's lurking. Could be lions, it could be leopard, who knows. The problem is the area that we're in is very dense and very, very thick, and that makes it hard to see what's going on. Ray, you're wondering if any animals eat bones? Yes, there are animals. You can see, look how thick it is there. Dave is showing you quickly just how thick it is. Now, Ray, there are animals that eat bones, so hyenas are probably the ones that eat the most bones, but you will find leopards, like Scott has got, will be able to eat smaller bones, and then lions also, they'll be able to crunch through legs and ribs and those kind of things. What they can't go through normally is big sort of pelvises and spines. The hyenas are the ones that come and try and clean up those and eat all of that stuff. But then there are some animals, so things like hippos and buffaloes and elephants, their bones are too big for even the hyenas, and well, they just have to kind of weather down. So when I say weather, they have to be heated and cooled and heated and cooled and heated and cooled, and eventually they kind of start to crack and decompose, and they then disappear over hundreds of years, or sometimes they'll even fossilize, and you'll get little fossils of bones in different places. So it just depends. But the impalas that we're alarm calling are behind us here. They don't seem to be too kind of worried about anything now. There doesn't seem to be any tracks here, so I'm going to go up a little bit. There's a road that goes up this way, so we're going to check that road and just see there's a little drainage section, which is a place that a lot of the predators like to walk in, and so we're going to check that little drainage section and just see what's going on there. Maybe we get lucky and something pops out on the road in front of us. Mrs. Hoyt, you're wondering what animals eat trees and plants and what are their names? Well, there are many, many, many different animals out here that eat trees and plants. So just to name a few, because if we had to name all of them, it would be quite a while. But we saw they like to eat trees and plants. Kudu, elephant. We see buffalo doing it very seldom, but they can do it sometimes. What else? Black rhinos or browsers, so they also eat leaves and plants, and then you've got a whole host of smaller animals too, but impalas, you'll even find duikers, which is a very small antelope. They'll feed off some of the plants as well. So there's quite a few different ones that do it, and that's just here in this particular sort of section of the Kruger National Park and of South Africa. As you go into different parts of Africa and different savanna biomes or different savanna sections, so you're going to get a situation where you're going to get a lot of different animals that are going to be eating the leaves and the trees. The biggest sort of destruction of trees, though, takes place from our elephants. In fact, you can see it right in front of us here. So there is a pile of elephant dung in the middle of the road, which indicates that it was an elephant first and foremost. And then there is trees that have been pulled and broken. And what the elephants are doing there is they're breaking that branch, and they're actually not eating the leaves. So while it looks like they've broken it to eat the leaves, they're not. Well, they're eating a small layer that covers the tree just underneath the bark. Oh, there's a nice little bird. That's a southern white-crowned shrike that's jumping around over there. But what they're eating is a thing called a cambium layer. Now, cambium is a red layer that sits just underneath the bark and is the transport system for the plant. So that takes the nutrients from the roots to the leaves and back again. So it's kind of where all the nutrients flows. And so for an elephant, it's the best part of the tree, and so they'll often break branches and then they try and feed it and eat that cambium layer to try and get the best nutrients possible. Now, talking about nutrients, it sounds like Thandi and Cub are both feeding off of that carcass and trying to get as much nutrients as they can for themselves.
They certainly are. I'm just trying to get us into a better spot, but we're not going to need to because the cub's taken off its own little piece of meat. And how cool is that? Mom eventually finished her dinner and allowed the cub to come down, and she just took off her little tasty morsel there. So I'm glad the cub's finally getting to snack down on meat, and this is actually the first time that I'm seeing this. It's definitely well into the period of her eating meat. Ah, Lindsay, you'd like to know what is my favorite animal? Tricky question. It's probably out of the big cats. Well, it's definitely out of the big cats, the leopard, then the cheetah, then the lion. And that question is impossible to answer because there's so many different types of sighting things. But the coolest thing I've seen a leopard do is probably have a tug of war with its meal and a hyena. That was very exciting. It was actually not too far from here, and it was one of this leopard called Tandi, one of her younger stepbrothers. I think it was Quarantine, maybe Djuma, who was wrestling with a hyena over an Inyala carcass. That was about 2 years ago. But we get so spoiled here, Lindsay. We see so many incredible things. Well, then I'd suggest you follow along for more of these Safari Live adventures, because we really do get very, very lucky with some. And just creep forward a little bit so Ferg can show you Tandi for the last few seconds. There she is. Be sure to tune in and follow us on our Nat Geo TV show tomorrow. We need all the support we can get. See you there.